On February 16, 2006, authorities in New Baltimore, Michigan received a call just before 5:30 p.m. for a welfare check on a young couple whose family had not heard from them in a while. When officers arrived at the home, they immediately noticed the lock had been broken off the door, a sign that something nefarious had occurred. The responding officers cautiously went inside, but nothing seemed amiss. That is until they walked into a back bedroom that appeared to be under renovation, when one of the officers kicked something they thought was debris. But the debris happened to be a human foot. Examining the scene, they discovered the two mummified bodies wrapped in plastic and sealed with duct tape. Little did investigators know that this case would become even more twisted and bizarre the deeper they plunged for answers. Welcome to another episode of Crimson Sin with Tamsin Leigh. I am your host, Tamsin Leigh. Full show notes and sources can be found in the description. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see the latest crime news and deep dive episodes. Also check out my Patreon page to stay up to date with the latest happenings with the show. Born in a small town called Leigh, Michigan in 1986, Samantha Bachynski was brought up in a broken home after her father was arrested for sex offenses. Life was difficult for her growing up in a home with only her mother and younger brother. With her father in jail, Samantha's mother would work long hours to provide for her children as a single mother. Because her mom was busy working hard for her family and due to her father being in prison during her formative years, Samantha grew up feeling an emotional void, not receiving a lot of attention. By the time Samantha was a teenager, she had low self-esteem, with many depicting her as a sad and isolated girl who desperately craved affection. But she didn't let these feelings get in the way of her studies, as she graduated from high school at the top of her class, with plans to become a nurse. While Samantha had a greater career outlook for her future, her loneliness persisted. At 19 years old, the teenager never had a boyfriend, something she fiercely wanted. Instead of going out to meet new people, she decided to look for a boyfriend online by signing up for a couple of online dating websites. Many suitors messaged her, however, there was only one that stood out to her, a 27-year-old named Patrick Selepak. A tall, handsome man born in Detroit, Michigan in 1978. He grew up in a home without a father and was always at odds with his mother. A point that fueled his hostility toward his mother was the constant flow of men coming and going. These boyfriends of hers were also known to physically abuse Patrick. When he was 17 years old, his mother kicked him out of her house. From his upbringing, a hatred for the world grew within him, and living on the streets would ultimately bring him down the wrong path in life, as he started doing drugs and drinking alcohol. To fund his addictions, Patrick began stealing and committing robberies. But his life of crime would be short-lived, when he was arrested at 18 years old for armed robbery and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. However, prison did more harm than good for the young man. By the time he was released, he was a 27-year-old hardened man whose hatred for the world intensified. While in prison, he became more cold and uncaring, and viewed society as harming him and molding him into what he was. However, he was vain. His good looks kept the ladies flocking to him, despite his criminal past. After being released from prison, he managed to have several relationships, but none of them worked out, so he decided to take his search for love online, where he discovered Samantha Bachynski. He was immediately drawn to the shy 19-year-old who had no experience with men. He presented himself as this charismatic bad boy that she believed brought more excitement into her life. Samantha's obsession with him would only grow more once they started an intimate relationship. She was now receiving the love and attention she was starved of while growing up, while her adoration and obsession fed him. Only 5 months into the relationship, Patrick proposed to Samantha. For her, it was an exciting and romantic time, but her family was not thrilled by the couple's announcement. In fact, they were caught off guard by the spur-of-the-moment proposal from a man with a questionable past. But they were pleased to see that Samantha was very happy. As the newly engaged couple was planning out their future, authorities were conducting their investigation into a double homicide. On February 16, 2006, authorities were called to the home of Melissa and Scott Barrels after her father called stating he hadn't heard from the couple in a few days, and that his son-in-law left a strange message on their answering machine. Scott claimed the couple were in the hospital. When the father called all the hospitals in the area, there were no records of his daughter or son-in-law being admitted. This is when responding officers found a troubling discovery. The lock had been broken off the front door. Suspecting a home invasion, the officers searched the home. However, they did not find an intruder. Instead, they found 2 bodies in a back bedroom, wrapped in plastic, with tape wrapped from head to toe. Investigators unwrapped each body and discovered that they were that of Melissa and Scott Barrels. Authorities were shocked by the couple's appearance. Scott was beaten and bloody, while Melissa's lips were blue. After turning the bodies over to the medical examiner, authorities got to work looking for evidence. As they searched the rooms, they could smell an overpowering scent of bleach, leading investigators to believe that whoever killed the couple tried to cover their tracks. However, through the perpetrators' attempts to destroy evidence, they missed something invaluable to authorities. A receipt from a local drugstore for duct tape purchased on February 16, 2006 at 3:02 a.m. While detectives waited on their search warrant to obtain the surveillance footage from the drugstore, they received word that the medical examiner had completed the Barrels' autopsies. Scott suffered severe blunt force trauma to the head with significant damage to the skull, and his neck showed signs of manual strangulation. But even with these traumatic injuries, the perpetrators went even further in their attempts to ensure Scott's death. The killer injected him with bleach. Melissa's autopsy results showed she was suffocated and manually strangled, just like her husband. And while her blood test results did not show signs of bleach in her system, it showed that she was pregnant. Now authorities wondered if the person who had killed the couple knew them, or if this was just a random attack. What if Melissa and her husband were killed because she was pregnant? After this shocking revelation, investigators were able to review the surveillance footage where the suspect bought the duct tape. They discovered a woman with short blonde hair had made the purchase. Soon the footage was turned over to news outlets for help finding the woman who committed this heinous crime. Once the footage hit the public, it did not take long for someone to recognize her. Authorities received several calls claiming the woman seen on the surveillance footage was Samantha Bachynski. Investigators immediately began digging into the 19-year-old's past. However, they were shocked when they discovered she had no prior criminal history. This led authorities to wonder how she could be involved in a double homicide. When investigators went looking for Samantha, she was nowhere to be found. But her family members told authorities that wherever she was most likely with her fiancé, Patrick Selepak. Looking into Patrick's past, detectives discovered his checkered past. Not only did they find out that he had spent 8 years in jail, but he had just recently gotten out of prison again for another crime. In November 2005, 8 weeks into his relationship with Samantha, Patrick was arrested for domestic violence against a former girlfriend. The assault was more than just a simple slap. Patrick actually beat her and tortured her by pouring sand in her mouth. The ex-girlfriend pressed charges, which sent Patrick to jail for 64 days. Most women would find this behavior unattractive, troubling even. With a boyfriend showing this amount of violence toward an ex, what would stop him from acting out the same, if not worse, toward a current relationship? However, this was not the case for Samantha. In fact, this caused her to become even more desperate to keep him in her life. Samantha was willing to wait years for her boyfriend to get out of jail. But due to issues with paperwork and not receiving a parole hearing, Patrick was released. After spending a small amount of time in jail, he proposed to Samantha. After discovering Patrick Selepak's sordid past, authorities immediately began a manhunt for the ex-convict and his adoring fiancée. But the couple was nowhere to be found. This is until authorities received a call on February 21st from a woman in Owasso, Michigan. The woman, Tara Beecham, stated she was an old acquaintance who met Sarah a year ago through a mutual friend. She told authorities that the couple had unexpectedly stopped by her home in Owasso. When the couple came to visit unannounced, Tara stated she was surprised to see that Samantha had dyed her hair pink. But during her visit with Samantha and her fiancé, Tara received a phone call from a friend telling her that Samantha was wanted for murder. But Tara did not let her fears show in front of the killer couple. Instead, she told them she had a job interview at a hotel and asked if they would be able to drive her, to which they agreed. Once she made it inside the hotel, she called the police, as Samantha and Patrick waited in the parking lot. Within minutes, officers showed up at the hotel. The couple was surrounded by armed officers in the parking lot and cautiously approached the vehicle. Authorities were surprised to find that the couple were asleep in the truck's cab. It was fairly easy to arrest the couple since they were caught off guard by their arrival. But more surprises were in store for authorities when they decided to search the couple's truck. In the bed, they found another body, wrapped in plastic and covered in duct tape. The victim was soon identified as 52-year-old Fred Johnson, who was the owner of the pickup truck the couple had been driving. Fred had been reported missing a few days before his body was discovered. Investigators set their sights on Samantha, believing she would be easy to crack. However, she immediately requested an attorney and wouldn't speak. Patrick was the one who went on to spill everything to investigators. But before he would dish out any information, he wanted to make one thing clear, that Samantha had no role in any of the incidents, that it was all him that committed these murders. Patrick claimed that the events that led up to the murders occurred not long after he was released from jail for his assault charge. Once he got out, he asked Samantha to marry him. But in order to finance their new life together, Patrick needed to get money. His plan was to steal merchandise from a local store and then resell it. According to Patrick, in order to make his plan work, he needed someone on the inside to give him access to the grocery stockroom. He soon made friends with a store employee who could give him access to what he needed. Melissa Barrels. Patrick met Melissa in an online chat and sparked up a relationship with her. He soon started meeting her at the grocery store where she worked. So she is telling him when the trucks come in and he is stealing it. He claimed that the food and produce he was stealing racked in thousands for him. And the arrangement worked out well. He furthered that they had a close relationship and he would often visit the Barrels' home. Patrick claimed that on February 15th, he was at the Barrels' home hanging out with Melissa and Scott when Melissa told her husband that she was pregnant. In the interview, Patrick claimed that he and Melissa had been intimate once, and there was speculation that he was the father of the child Melissa was carrying, though Patrick couldn't state whether Scott knew his wife was having an affair. However, according to Patrick, this announcement caused a heated argument to erupt, which quickly turned to violence. He claimed that Scott came at him with a knife and Patrick tried to defend himself. So he takes out a gun and begins repeatedly hitting him in the face with it. There was so much blood that Patrick thought Scott was dead. Believing that he just killed Scott, Patrick claims he had no choice but to turn his attention to Melissa, choking her until her face and lips were blue. After Melissa was dead, Patrick noticed that Scott was still alive. So he placed a plastic bag over his head until there was no more movement. But Patrick didn't stop there. He wanted to make sure that his victim was no longer, so he resorted to a very unusual method. Patrick claims he went to a pharmacy to purchase bleach and syringes. Then he went back to the Barrels' residence and injected Scott with bleach. He claimed that once he knew the couple were dead, he then called Samantha to help him conceal the crime. In my research, I didn't see anything that really fully proved that Melissa and Patrick were having an affair, so I think that's merely speculation just on Patrick's part because that was his side of the story. Once the couple finished their mission, Patrick and Samantha decided to lay low for a few days, going to Flint, Michigan, staying at a hotel and hanging out at a bar. There, the couple met 52-year-old Fred Johnson. Patrick claimed that while conversing with Fred, it seemed apparent that the guy was lonely and enjoyed the company of the couple. Somehow or another, the conversation turned into the couple asking Fred if they could stay with him, to which Patrick claims Fred agreed. So now Samantha and Patrick were staying in Fred's house for a few days. All seemed to be going well until Fred came home from work to confront the two. Patrick claimed that Fred found out that Samantha and him were wanted for murder, and Fred was about to turn them in. From his threats, Patrick pulled a gun on Fred. As the man feared for his life, he tried to run for the door, but Patrick shot him twice. While Fred was lying on the ground bleeding, Patrick walked over to him and strangled him to death. Investigators were shocked by Patrick's claims. While the claims are somewhat plausible, they had to make sure Samantha would back them up. Was she only guilty of helping conceal the crimes, or did she play a more sinister hand? Once investigators informed Samantha that Patrick confessed, she quickly changed her mind about staying quiet. But she had no idea that Patrick had gone completely out of his way to protect her. From her story, it was found out that the Barrels' death was something that had been carefully planned out days before the murder took place. The plan was to get rid of Melissa and Scott Barrels so Patrick could take over Scott's identity. He wanted to clean up the house, renovate it, and sell it. She also stated that she had been at the Barrels' residence the day of their murders. After Patrick pulled a gun on the couple, he forced Scott to record a fake machine message claiming that he and his wife had gone to the hospital for an emergency. Then Patrick began to beat and strangle the couple. Shockingly, Samantha claimed that she had helped him do it. According to Samantha, she and Patrick visited the Barrels' house, and at some point they locked the couple in their bathroom. While Patrick choked Melissa, she turned blue but was still alive. Samantha then covered Melissa's head with a plastic bag and pulled a belt around the victim's neck until she was dead. After taking a cigarette break, Samantha returned to help Patrick finish off Scott. Patrick beat the victim until there was blood everywhere, but he was still alive. This is when Samantha came up with an idea. She injected him with bleach. When this did not work out the way the murderous couple intended, Samantha put her foot on Scott's head and pulled a belt around his neck, strangling him. When they finished their heinous crime, Samantha and Patrick hid the bodies before stealing the couple's money and driving away in their car. She continued her story that the next day she and Patrick befriended a stranger, Fred Johnson, at a bar and seduced him that night and in the days that followed, first at a hotel and eventually at Fred's home. They spent the next 2 days watching movies at Fred's house. Then on the last night, Samantha and Patrick tortured and killed Fred so they could steal his truck and other personal items. They then loaded his body into the bed of his own truck and stole it. After the horrifying confession, she would grow to regret what she said and claim that Patrick left her no choice, forcing her to help him in the murders. Her attorney moved to suppress her confession, arguing that the detectives had coerced her into talking through psychological intimidation. The state trial court denied Samantha's motion and found that she was the one who initiated the interrogation. Samantha Bachynski was charged with aiding and abetting many of Patrick Selepak's crimes. During the trial, the jury heard the confessions and saw physical evidence such as her fingerprints on the duct tape used to wrap the bodies. Her sweatshirt had blood and bleach on it, and she was in the driver's seat of a dead man's truck with his dead body in the back when she and Patrick were arrested. The jury not only heard of the atrocious murders the couple committed together, but also of their other crimes. The court heard from 2 witnesses that on January 31st, 2006, Samantha and Patrick went to a restaurant in Chesterfield, Michigan. Just before closing time, Patrick walked inside. After ordering food, he drew a gun, pointed it at the employees, and forced them to lie on the floor. At the scene, Patrick took the security tape and $400 to $600 in cash. Samantha testified that she was waiting for her boyfriend outside the restaurant in her grandmother's van, but she had no idea that Patrick had intended to rob the establishment. She stated that she did not suspect that he had robbed the restaurant until later that night when they went out for an expensive dinner and she saw the cash. Then on February 13th, Samantha accompanied Patrick to a Dunham Sports store in Flint, Michigan. Store employees testified that Patrick Selepak entered the store and looked at firearms and ammunition at least twice that day. Later that evening, Samantha stated she entered the store and approached an employee who was working near the firearms counter. The employee walked with Samantha to a different part of the store, remaining with her for several minutes as she asked him questions about treadmills and other equipment. As she kept this employee busy, Patrick entered the store manager's office, holding a gun to her back. He ordered the manager to give him roughly $800 in cash from the safe, 2 guns, and ammunition. Patrick then had the employee who was helping his girlfriend come into the office and help remove the gun's trigger locks. Samantha Bachynski testified that she went inside the store with Patrick and talked to an employee about treadmills. However, she claimed she had no idea he had robbed the store until later. She initially claimed to authorities that Patrick asked her to distract the employee. But during the trial, she claimed she only talked to the employee because she believed her boyfriend planned on purchasing a treadmill for her. The jury rejected Samantha's defense that her boyfriend forced her to commit these awful crimes. On October 20th, 2006, a jury in Macomb County, Michigan, found Samantha Bachynski guilty of 2 counts of first-degree murder under both premeditation and felony murder theories. First-degree home invasion, possession of a firearm during the commission of a felony, unlawfully driving away a motor vehicle, kidnapping, assault on a pregnant woman, intentionally causing miscarriage or stillbirth, and obtaining, possessing, or transferring personal identifying information with the internet to commit identity theft. Patrick Selepak had already pled guilty, while Samantha Bachynski was sentenced to life in prison with no chance of parole. Patrick Selepak is currently serving his life sentence at Baraga Maximum Facility. Samantha Bachynski is serving her life sentence at Huron Valley Women's Complex. What are your thoughts on today's case? Do you believe Samantha Bachynski was forced to commit these heinous crimes by Patrick Selepak, or did he just bring out the ruthless killer hiding just beneath the surface? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe to see the latest crime news and deep dive episodes. Also, check out my Patreon page to stay up to date with the latest happenings with the show. Thank you for listening and your support. Stay safe, and I will see you for the next episode. Bye.